So you're thinking about moving to Hillsboro, Oregon, and you're curious, what are the pros and cons, the good and the bad, of living in Hillsboro, this large suburb to the west of Portland that a lot of people seem to love, but also maybe what are the downsides? So today we're going to talk about the upsides and the downsides of living in Hillsboro, Oregon, and it all starts right now. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it is your first time. My name is Jared, and as much as I enjoy making these videos, more than anything, I love helping people with the buying and selling process as a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Oregon. And I'd love to help you or have a conversation. And if I can be of any help in any way, my info is right here. I would love to hear from you and get connected. And then on top of that, if you're enjoying this content and would like to see more of it, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications so you don't miss any updates on what it's like to live in the Portland metro area. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the pros and the cons of living in Hillsboro, Oregon. So the very first pro of living in Hillsboro, Oregon, I think might be the obvious one, and that is the presence of Intel in the Silicon Forest. So Intel is the largest private employer in the Portland metro, I believe, in the state of Oregon. And it's located in Hillsboro. They have 4 or 5 different campuses around there with billions of dollars invested in the region for chip manufacturing and other activities that Intel is up to. And on top of that, with all the advent of AI and data centers, Hillsboro is becoming a huge hub for that. And on top of Intel's presence, like I said, we have the Silicon Forest, which is kind of our way of describing this massive tech area, kind of similar to, say, the Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, but much smaller and much more concentrated. But it's basically all these adjacent tech businesses that exist in and around the Hillsboro area that service Intel, or you have a lot of people that used to work at Intel or businesses that spun off that now are in the area. And so what this leads to is just an absolute abundance of job opportunities and economic activity. So living out in Hillsboro, maybe you're headed out to Hillsboro because you have a job at one of these tech companies or Intel, or maybe you're curious about where your career could end up moving by being in a place like this. A huge pro to being in Hillsboro is the presence of Intel and high economic activity. Our next pro on the list for Hillsboro is massive new development. So over the past 10 years or so, especially in the south part of Hillsboro, there's been this massive residential development called Reed's Crossing. And it has a capacity, when it's finally completed, to house about 15,000 residents. It's got a small hospital. It's got a really nice shopping center that just went in with a nice grocery store called Market of Choice and a bunch of other businesses around there. And the walking paths, and honestly, just the fact that you can find a lot of new construction homes. A lot of builders are offering great incentives on interest rates these days. And it just creates a massive amount of opportunity for modern living, brand new construction. A big pro of that is that you are not looking at a ton of maintenance over the first, decade of owning your home, and you've got builder warranties that can just kind of help back up your purchase as you build equity and have a home in the Hillsboro area. And so this massive development is meaning that people are also having a chance to kind of set the culture of their neighborhood. There's also so many different homes to choose from in that area, from large family homes to smaller townhomes. And there's just so many options that are emerging down there. And there's just new development happening everywhere in Hillsboro, again, because Intel's economic activity, that engine, really drives a lot of activity and growth. There's always people coming into town because of the tech world here in Hillsboro. Third on our list of pros for living in Hillsboro, Oregon is the fantastic downtown. So over the last few decades, there's been a lot of attention given to a lot of downtowns throughout the United States that aren't necessarily, major city downtowns. And Hillsboro has one of them. While Hillsboro is 110,000 people, the downtown core still reflects that smaller town feel. So if you're in downtown Main Street, you'll notice that there's been a lot of updates done to a lot of the businesses there. You have a lot of businesses that have been there for a long time, but you have a lot of emerging businesses, and you also have some condo living that's starting to emerge downtown. But a big focal point is the fact that Hillsboro City Government is there with the Hillsboro Civic Center. And then there's also the seat of Washington County is Hillsboro. So you have the Washington County Courthouse, and you just have a lot of activity that's happening downtown. But you have a lot of these really nice businesses that are merging little boutiques and restaurants, coffee shops that are absolute staples of the community. And then they have a lot of activities that happen in downtown Hillsboro. So you've got the Tuesday night markets that happen throughout the summertime, and then you have various Saturday morning markets that involve, various vendors and farmers and people that have, these smaller businesses. They have a chance to come and present their stuff to the world. They close off the streets. It's a lot of fun. You'll have live music. You'll have food carts. You'll even have kind of a small car show, which is basically just people bringing out their classic cars, and you get to look at them, read about them, talk to the owners, and it's a lot of fun. They also have various parades downtown throughout the year for different events, and it just creates a really warm, welcoming feeling for everybody. Fourth on our list of pros of living in Hillsboro, Oregon is neighborhood variety. So overall, Hillsboro has experienced most of its growth, most of its population growth in the last 50 years, probably going from about 25,000 people in the 1970s all the way up to 110,000 today. So that is quite a lot of growth in not a ton of time. And so as a result, most of the construction in the area is going to be more mid-century and beyond. And this is just great for modern living and having homes that don't have a ton of major issues to deal with as they age. You have a lot of homes from the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And then of course you have Reed's Crossing, which is a massive development. So you have a lot of new construction, but you still have a lot of different options for how you want to live. And so you have your traditional neighborhoods that you expect for the suburbs. You've got wide streets, sidewalks, homes with garages. You've got a lot of different neighborhoods that have decent sized yards. More new construction, they like to use up that land as much as possible, so yards are a little bit less. But again, it's all your lifestyle. If you have a family and you're looking for some space, you're gonna find it. And if you're maybe single or you don't have a family necessarily, or you love to get out, you love to explore the area, and having a yard is not necessarily paramount, there are homes for that as well. There's a lot of townhome options. You've got some different developments that are all about walkability and efficiency. So I think of the Orenco neighborhood as this very unique, almost quasi-urban section in the suburbs next to light rail. And it allows for walkability. You've got New Seasons, just over the way. You've got shops down below the kind of medium mixed development. And then of course you have suburbs with large lots, big houses, and lots of space, connected to parks, close to schools. There's just so much variety in Hillsboro. So fifth and final pro on our list of living in Hillsboro, Oregon is its proximity to the Oregon coast. So Hillsboro is the largest suburb west of Portland, and as a result, this puts you that much closer to the Oregon coast. If you're living in Portland proper, you're still incredibly close to both Mount Hood and the Oregon coast. But personally, I'm a ocean guy, and I love the idea of living on the west side for the fact that you can be that much closer to the Oregon coast. You probably shave off 15 to 30 minutes of commute time by living in Hillsboro, and in certain parts of Hillsboro, you might even be shaving off even more. And so I would say it's probably, from driveway to parking either at Seaside or Cannon Beach at the end of Highway 26 is probably about 70 to 75 minutes. Driving safely, of course. Some people can make it even faster. And so by being in Hillsboro, you are that much closer to arguably one of the most beautiful parts of the United States, let alone the state of Oregon. The northern Oregon coast is really majestic and beautiful. There's so many natural areas, so many opportunities for hiking. And then Cannon Beach and Seaside in particular, these two towns kind of represent, kind of two different ways to enjoy the ocean. You have Seaside, which has a large promenade, and they have got arcades, and they've got tall hotels, and a really deep beach. If you're from the East Coast, you know that some beaches can be really narrow. These are really, really long, and the tides come in and out. And it's just a really unique place. There's so much to do in Seaside for families to have a lot of fun. And then same thing for Cannon Beach. It's got the views with Haystack Rock. It's got so many different amazing beach rentals with incredible views. And you also have the very cute and quaint downtown. You can meander in and out of ice cream shops and coffee shops, bookstores, different art galleries. There's so many different things to do on the Oregon coast. And by being in Hillsboro, you are that much closer. So that's our list for the pros of living in Hillsboro, Oregon. We obviously could have more, but we want to be real with you and look at the cons of living in Hillsboro. The very first con of living in Hillsboro is that it is the suburb that is furthest away from Portland on the west side. So that pro of being that close to the coast also means that you are that much further from Portland. And if life and work are located in Portland, by living in Hillsboro, you are maybe getting a jump when it comes to home affordability and being a little bit more out of the way. But in order to commute into Portland, it's going to be a little bit of a hike. So especially if you add on traffic, that could easily be 45 minutes or more, depending on the day. Typically, if you're in Hillsboro, depending on where you are, you're almost certainly going to jump up to Highway 26, which runs along the north of town. And it's pretty much a straight shot, but it's it's still a long way. And then once you get into Beaverton and as you start to approach the tunnel, getting into downtown Portland, you're going to run into morning traffic. And that can definitely add up. So by being a little bit further away, that can definitely be a detractor of living in Hillsboro, Oregon. And so that leads into our second con, which is the traffic. So the Highway 26 runs along the northern end of Hillsboro, and it's largely this straight shot, and a good chunk of it is through more rural areas. And so getting to the highway is not really too much of an issue, but once you're on there, that's really your only option going west to east or east to west. There's no really other options. And so you've got bigger avenues. You've got, other minor highways like Tualatin Valley Highway, Highway 8 down in the south of town. And you have Baseline Road, which becomes Main Street in downtown, but will take you all the way out to Beaverton, where it then turns into Jenkins. These are really your major thoroughfares, but there's going to be a lot of lights. There's going to be a lot of other commuters. And then because people are largely trying to get to the highway to the north, you're going to find that people are trying to do the northern routes. You're just going to have a lot of company. Now, if you're more towards the west, and let's say you're by Brookwood, that's a little more central Hillsboro, they do have a lot of wide avenues, and actually some of those avenues will get up to 55 miles per hour because they're that rural, at least on the northern section, and there's such a priority of getting people off the highways and helping their commute to get to Intel and a lot of the other businesses in Hillsboro. And so the infrastructure is there, but you still have a lot of company. So there's a lot of traffic in Hillsboro. And then third on a list, and this is running the traffic, commuter theme, there is a lack of freeways. So you have Highway 26 to the north, and that is pretty much the only freeway really in Washington County besides 217 over in Beaverton. But for Hillsboro, 217 is neither here nor there. When it comes to your northern southern routes, you're looking at a lot of lights. You're looking at wide avenues that might get up to 45 miles an hour. And Brookwood will get up to 55 if you are, headed north. But overall, there's really a lack of freeways out here. Now, that can be a pro for some, but when you look at how Hillsboro has expanded and grown, it really does add to commute times when you have to stop at a lot of lights. So, for example, Highway 8, Tualatin Valley Highway towards the south, has a ton of lights. It can slow down a lot, especially as you get closer to downtown. And then it will meander through downtown before it heads out of town to Forest Grove and Cornelius. And so it just means that you don't have as many options. And so the lack of freeways, which is kind of a theme in the Portland metro area, I don't think we've built a new freeway since the early 80s. And I think there was this assumption that maybe growth would maybe not happen the way it did, but it did. The secret's out. People love to live here. But because we haven't built freeways, it's really hard to get something like that going these days. And so the lack of freeways out in the Hillsboro area means that not only are you further out and there's a little more traffic, but you also have maybe fewer options for how you're going to get around. Fourth on our list of cons of living in Hillsboro, Oregon is there's a lack of homes with character. And what I mean by that is because Hillsboro expanded so much on the back half of the 20th century, you have a ton of mid-century homes, which are really awesome. But you also have a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s, a little bit more recent modern homes. And as far as having homes from the 1910s, 20s, 30s, you really have to go to the downtown Hillsboro core in order to find that. And so just as a result, if you're looking for a home with character, Hillsboro is going to be a difficult place to find that. There are different pockets, like Orenco, the original Orenco neighborhood is kind of this little secret neighborhood, an old town that was enveloped by Hillsboro as it grew. But you have little pockets like that and little stretches of, smaller former, farm towns that have now turned into larger neighborhoods. You'll find those homes, but they're very few and far between. And finally, our last con of what it's like to live in Hillsboro is kind of a flip on one of our positives, is that there's a lot of growth going on in Hillsboro, but that can also be a con. There's a lot of construction going on. Obviously to the south of town, it's largely concentrated in Reed's Crossing. And if you find a home there, that's great, but you're also going to be having a lot of construction and activity probably for the next couple years. And then on top of that, you have a lot of road construction, a lot of widening of roads, different construction processes that are currently underway that can lead to some disruption and some undesirable living conditions just for a time, but that is something to consider when you're moving to Hillsboro. So that's our pros and cons list for living in Hillsboro, Oregon. Was there anything that I missed? Something that was a pro you thought was a con, or vice versa? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And like I said, as much as I enjoy making these videos, I am a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Oregon, and more than anything, I love helping people out with the buying and selling process. And so if I can be any assistance to you, or you would love to get in touch, my info is right here. And like I said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing. So thanks for joining me on this video all about the pros and cons of Hillsboro, Oregon, and I will see you on the next one.